Right, it looks like we are live. Good evening, fuckers, and welcome to the first of a completely new playlist for this channel. New playlist, but yeah, the same old faces. You know, I'll drag these two in again. You know, you can't get away from them. If I can't, then yeah, you lot certainly can't. Yeah, cheers. So this is the first of our long overdue film review videos, and the format I've chosen, there's no getting away from it. I have kind of borrowed, shall we say, the format that Carwin used in his channel. We are basically going to be watching the film. We'll get the chance to discuss it, and then we shall give our reviews at the end. So for the first film of this playlist, I've gone with what is regarded by most people as an absolute nailed-on classic film, the 1957 original of 12 Angry Men, starring Henry Fonda and directed by Sidney Lumet, based on the 1954 stage play. I say based on it, the guy who wrote the stage play also wrote the screenplay for this, so there is really no difference between the two. There have been 2 or 3 films made of this particular play, but this one is regarded by just about everybody as the de facto version. Anyone mentions 12 Angry Men, this is the film that they are they are thinking of.
No.
Well, apart from a certain Tony Hancock fan who's sitting right there. Yeah. So we do have a bit of a spread as far as how well people actually know this film. Or at least as good a spread as we can have, with only 3 people actually taking part here. So I have seen this film so many times that I can practically reel off the entire script from start to finish. Now, Chris, I know you have seen it, but it's fair to say it was quite a while ago.
It was a long while ago. I mean, needless to say, I was still at school and I'm an old cunt now, so that was a long time ago.
The first time I saw it was when I was at school as well. And then, Jim, you've never seen it.
I've never seen it. Right? I've heard good things about it, but never
seen it. Well, at least you've heard of it, which is a step up from Mainmeister, like 2 years ago or whenever it was when we did the top 30 films. This was the first film to appear in it, and he said he had never heard of it. Fuck you, what? Oh dear. Yeah, I'll never let you forget that one.
And you haven't?
No, I never will. Right, and also a bit of a change for certainly this channel is the fact that this stream. The fact that it's a stream, so we have the comments coming in as we speak, and unlike me Elite Dangerous videos, I can actually see them as they appear without having to minimise anything beforehand. So that's quite the novelty.
Hang on a minute. I'll tell you what's the fucking novelty from doing a video review. Apart from pressing play on my video and talking, I ain't got to do fuck all tonight.
You just got to sit there, Yeah, I hope you can cope with the workload there, yeah.
Well, I don't know, mate.
So, we'll give it a few minutes for, anybody who may be coming along to, actually do so. It looks like we have, we've got at least 3. We have Erodian, Jambon, and Falcon 12001. Falcon, that sounds very familiar. I think I might know who that is.
I know who it is.
Well, he thinks we look like the most wanted list on Crime Watch.
Not far wrong, is he?
Yeah, I'd say it's not a bad it's not a bad description.
That does make you the getaway driver by default, Jim, because me and Chris can't drive.
But I've only got a motorbike.
I was going to say, yeah, get 3 of us on a motorbike. There you go.
I'll get a sidecar for you.
Yeah, that'll sort it out. So, right, so what do you two know about this film then? Bearing in mind that, not a great deal of viewing time between the two of you. What are you aware of?
I know, really, it's just about a jury deliberating in a murder trial or something, isn't it?
That is the basically the entire plot. I mean, if you want to make it sound like it's going to be really boring, it's 90 minutes of people talking, and that's it. There is very little action in it at all. The whole film takes place in one room, in the jury room, and yet, despite these rather major, shortcomings, certainly modern audiences would consider these like serious shortcomings, it is pretty much regarded as the de facto example of character building in the entire history of the moving image. We see character development here. In fact, we're going to see more of it in the next 90 minutes or so than you will see in Hollywood's entire output for in the 21st century, which says as much about how shit modern films are for that as it says how good this thing is.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, like I say, it has been a time, but it's a film that if you like films, you know about it. Well, most people know about it. And the one thing I remember for this is very similar to why I like the Bogart film, The Maltese Falcon. I mean, there's even less locations in this one, but there's very few locations, and it's all about the character acting. And from what I can remember, it's fucking superb. And that's the main draw for watching this. Like Chris was saying, it's the character building, but it's the portrayal of the characters in such a limited area that they've got to act in. You can't really cut to an outside shot or anything like that, because it literally is the one room. So yeah, it should be interesting to watch it again. I do remember when I did watch it that it was one of them ones that I didn't think I'd normally watch. I believe it might have been on one sort of like Sunday afternoon when it was pissing down with rain. I was round my mate's house, and we normally would like listen to music and fucking play D&D and all that sort of stuff. And he put it on, and we were just fucking glued to it. And we just watched the whole film because we couldn't pull ourselves away. So I'm hoping it's going to have that effect again.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will. The first time I saw it, I was at school. It was in an English lesson, and it had to be split between two lessons. And when it started, I was like, oh, fucking hell, courtroom dramas, because I detest courtroom dramas. I've got no time for them. And because this is so well written and so well performed, it had me hooked right from the start. And yeah, basically from the moment I saw it, the first time, it went into like my top 10 favourite films and has never left it. I mean, like all of our music lists that we've done in music videos, my top 10 films does tend to vary a bit depending on like the mood I'm in, but there are like 3 or 4 films that never leave it, and this is unquestionably one of them.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, when we done the video with Alan with Mainmeister, I mean, my top 3 I believe was Aliens, Ghostbusters, and Planet of the Apes. That's never going to change. Unless something amazing comes out, which is fucking unlikely.
Yeah.
I can't see that changing. But the rest of them can move around, drop in, drop out. And like you're saying with the music one, I can't see anything ever replacing The Trooper as my favourite song. But everything else is in a constant state of flux. I mean, like I've been listening to something I don't listen to very much this weekend, and today, and I've totally fucking enjoyed it. So it can change and move around.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, to let people watching this know, if you are going to be watching the film along with us, we currently have it paused at like the very start of the film, so it's just faded into the exterior shot of the courthouse. So if you get your videos to that same position, and then in like a minute or so, we'll get the film underway. One other thing I will add, this is something we can cover once we've watched it. The character development in this is so well done that I quite like going through and assessing like each of the characters individually, and that's something that I'd like to do at the end of this. So we'll go through like each of the jurors. And by the end of the film, even Jim, even though this will be the first time you've seen it, I think you'll certainly get the chance to form some pretty strong opinions about most, if not everyone, who is actually in it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, I think the intros are all done. I think we are all set. So I've got the video up, and right, we'll do a bit of a countdown. Make sure we all start at the same time. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play.
With the one and only exterior shot.
Impressive pillars.
Oh, is that a film highlight there for you?
Well, you know, I mean, it's good old architecture, isn't it? It's nice to see that. They don't just cut straight in, you know, they give you a sense of where you are.
It certainly does have a good sort of build-up.
And have you actually done jury service? I haven't.
I got called up for it, and it was the first time I've ever been glad that I had epilepsy, because I used that as my reason for getting out of it. I had no interest in doing it at all.
I haven't been called up yet, but I think I might tell them I'm some sort of xenophobic. I don't know, and I hate everybody, and everyone's guilty as far as I'm concerned, and try and get out of it that way. But then I say that, but people I know that have done it have actually enjoyed it, so depends how far I've got to travel, I suppose.
I love the way the judge gives that speech. It's clear he's done it hundreds of times. He's just sitting there totally disinterested.
Quick little look at him.
That is a long fade.
There's half a dozen ashtrays there. You don't see that now.
I always laugh when I see the name E.G. Marshall, because I always think, oh, that's the president from Superman 2.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
John Fielder's in it as well. Piglet.
Yep. And from Star Trek.
Yep. Oh yes.
Jack the Ripper, weren't he in that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Was Red Jack.
Did he do the voice of? Sorry, did he do the voice of Benny in Top Cat as well? Because if he didn't, it was bloody similar.
No, he didn't.
No, it wasn't him. No. Jambon's pointed out something there that I've always noticed. All lowercase titles. I don't know why it was done that way, but yeah, it's something that I've always sort of like wondered about why they chose to do that.
It's different.
No, I can't do that tonight because all you'll hear on my mic is a load of drunken Indians shouting up and down the street from the cricket.
You're going to be a tad warm then, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't know that either. We lock them in.
Didn't the actor Jack Klugman end up in Two's Company? You know, the American version of whatever thing Richard O'Brien was in with the two birds.
Robin's Nest.
Was that Robin's Nest? Was it? Yeah.
Or was that or Man About the House? I don't know. I just know him as Quincy.
Well. Well, yeah, he's really famous as Quincy, isn't he?
Well, this was one of the first films he ever did. It was certainly his first like major role, and he considered this the best thing he ever did. I'll go along with that.
Yeah, I can't stand Quincy.
No.
He's already starting to wind up, twatting the hat.
There's always one, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Herodian asks, has anyone seen Marty Balsam and Ernest Borgnine in the same room? Can't say I have.
Sounds bang to rights.
You'd think, wouldn't you? Oh, have that.
Naughty.
Just want to say to a roadie, and that fly was uncredited as well.
I think my copy of this has been very slightly edited because I think I'm ahead of you lot.
He's standing by the women's toilet.
Yeah, the guy with the hat, rubbing his neck with hanky.
Yeah.
And he's finally took his jacket off.
Yeah, I've got Lee Cobb showing Henry Fonda the photo of his son.
Alright, you might want to pause it then for a sec.
Alright.
And we'll catch you up.
Let us know when he says the line, kids, you work your life out. Work your heart out.
Said I made a man out of him.
Well, me and you are neck and neck, Jim.
There you go. You work your heart out. It's just said it.
Alright. I resume there. straight away, number 4 makes a good point. The whole discussion was started about like his background, which really shouldn't have any bearing on the case.
They didn't really have pleading insanity much back then, did they?
Oh, Viceroy cigarettes still a thing? Well, I think they were only in America. I don't know if they are still going.
Wouldn't know.
No idea.
I'll Google it for completeness. Well, I found out it was the world's first cork-tipped cigarette. Yeah, it's currently owned by Reynolds Tobacco Company. And the BAT, British American Tobacco, outside. So yeah, still going. They must be over here as well then. So there you go. Go and get yourself some Viceroys. Don't smoke, kids. It's not good for you. Don't listen to Lucosa. Or in fact, look at him and make your own fucking mind up.
Yeah, I'm all the health warning you need.
Saying that, I'll probably prove that vapes are just as bad soon.
Probably. But they don't kick my asthma off, so that's why I've stuck with them. That'd all be in plastic bags now, wouldn't it, that?
Hmm.
There's the bombshell.
Get a knife into a courtroom.
And Jambon, that's quite a coincidence. I mean, that's the point number 4 makes. Yes, it is possible, but it is not very probable.
Mm. I reckon there'll be a swing vote.
There you go.
Ooh, not guilty. That was an impressive trick he did with the lit fag just then.
I know how many takes that took.
I'm still getting over the shock of seeing him without his hat on.
He reminds me of Donny Most, that bloke. I keep expecting to say, "Hey, Potty."
Oh, the hat's back on.
Wouldn't be the same without it, really, would he?
Good choice of words. Noughts and crosses. I think he's got a point.
Yes.
So,
About, yeah, the train going past.
the old train.
And living by Vauxhall, right by the train track, before, I know exactly what it's like. Can't hear fuck all with the window open.
Well, yeah, I lived 3 roads away from a train line when I was a kid growing up, and the windows were open. You could hear them roaring past, and those were just electric ones. So,
Yeah, of course, with these things, like you said, you can pretty much reach out from the window and touch the tracks. So, yeah.
I think Jambon's got a point there. I bet they did as well. You see some crazy stuff from the Google Maps cars. Imagine those train lines going past all of those houses.
Mm.
Oh, there's a film about that, isn't there? A Girl on the Train or whatever it's called.
Tell you what, if you were trying to quit smoking, this is the worst film to watch.
I don't think there's one of them that hasn't lit up at least 2 fags. Another good point.
I think Jambon is suggesting that, the accused should be ending up in Broadmoor. So the ones who are voting guilty are voting it because they don't want to be there. That's the only reason. Well, there are two that particularly who are certainly doing that, yeah. Way to shoot yourself in the foot. Herodian, well, it's sort of been forced out now that he's got a power cut where he is.
Oh, there we go. Just undermined another argument by saying he'll kill him.
And that was clearly the end of Act 2 of the play.
It's like just like Prince Andrew.
I was just going to say, is he related to Prince Andrew?
So the acting is fucking brilliant in this.
It is.
Jambon's saying there, he loves the sense of relief when it starts raining. Um, that relief was actually quite genuine. There wasn't a lot of acting there. While they were making this, Sidney Lumet, the director, he basically kept everyone in that room, no air conditioning. It was deliberately kept hot, and he had them all in there for hours on end without actually filming, just to give them the sense of what it was like being cooped up in this room in that heat. It doesn't sound like it was a very pleasant experience.
No, but it added complete authenticity and atmosphere.
Oh, exactly, yeah. I can certainly understand him doing it. I mean, none of the actors resented him for doing it, even though they didn't particularly like it. He knew what he was doing.
Do you say it was the same guy that directed The Exorcist?
No, that was William Friedkin.
Right.
That's when we were talking about. I forget what
97
film
one.
it was.
This film.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. It's only because I was thinking of him using starting pistols and things and winding his cast up.
Doing a Kubrick.
It's a great line, that.
proper chain smoking now. Look at him.
Oh, he started sweating now.
Yeah.
He's been de-Andrewed.
So I always thought that it was because of like some of the rain had come through the window, but of course no, they've shut all the windows, haven't they?
Yeah.
But before it was raining, a lot of them are wringing with sweat. Apart from the Prince Andrew.
Yeah, exactly, and that's him.
Allegedly, he said, covering everyone's arses.
Well, no, it was Prince Andrew himself who said that he didn't sweat, so we're just quoting him. Fucking nonce.
Wow.
He really is an arsehole, isn't he, that bloke?
It is.
Played really well.
Yeah, he'd already wound me up within like the first 5 minutes. I thought he's a dick.
He's going to get a slap when they get outside afterwards. I know that much.
He sounds like Suella Braverman. Seems a bit convenient, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's just trashed that, isn't it?
Perhaps he should have brought it up earlier.
I think he only just twigged.
Yeah, I know. I was taking the piss, Jim.
Wow. Just that one stubborn cunt now, isn't it? Wow.
Oh, someone put their arm round him, for fuck's sakes. Poor bloke, just had a meltdown.
There you go, just as you asked.
I think you're a few seconds ahead of us again. But I thought if anyone was going to, it would have been him. Mm.
Well, there we are.
I've still got the credits going on mine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the credits, yeah. The only roles that are actually credited are, the 12 jury members. Everybody else, completely uncredited. But there we go. We have just watched 12 Angry Men from 1957. So, Jim, that was the first time you'd seen this. What are your first impressions?
Well, it is not going to be the last time I see it. Let's put it that way. I was thoroughly sucked into that. And it's just people talking, but the drama, the tension, the chemistry between the actors, it was fucking phenomenal film.
Chris?
Same. It pulled me in again like it did the first time I saw it, and because it had been so long, I couldn't remember how they got to where they got to until it was actually happening on the screen. So, like, where was it? Number 3 had his sort of like breakdown of his photograph. It weren't until he looked at the photograph like, oh yeah, I remember what he does here, and then it became apparent. But yeah, it totally pulled me in again, and it is all down to how well it's acted, how well it's written. Fantastic. It won't be sort of like 40 years till I watch it again.
The writing for the film and the original play, there's practically no deviation from the original stage play and the screenplay here. So it's fantastically written, and the performances right across the board are just, I would say close to perfect. You've got like a real sort of like blend of characters who are like particularly likable, regardless of whether what side they're on, whether they're voting guilty or not guilty. You have characters who are, you can very much sort of sympathise with. You very much be on their side. And then, of course, at the other extreme, you've got some absolute scumbags who, you just cannot stand. It's got everything as far as like character traits really well done, and character progression, and particularly the character progression. And there's one in particular that I think really does show it well. They develop throughout the film, but they do it in such a way, and it's paced in such a way that it is believable, even though they are changing throughout the film. And I'm thinking particularly of juror number 2 here. When he starts off, he's very timid. He's almost like afraid to speak his mind. And as the film goes on, he's starting to stand up for himself, and he's then becoming more like ready to argue the points, especially with juror number 3. But it's done at such a rate that it is entirely believable. It's not over the top, so a real dramatic change, like that, and suddenly he's a completely different character. So things like that, I think, is where the film really does excel.
I thought they did that well with juror number 5 as well. Jack Klugman's character. He again, you got a hint early on that he'd sort of like started off in the same sort of ghetto area that the accused had.
Yeah,
and he was like, you can't talk about people like that. He stood up to the old racist bloke.
Yes,
and
well, it's interesting to say that. You notice throughout the rest of the film, right? Because it was juror 10 who was saying about people who come from the ghettos, and I think that's why juror 5 is rather quiet at the beginning. It's almost like he's ashamed about where he come from, especially as he's on the jury. The kid on trial is from a very similar sort of background and very similar area where he's from. So when juror number 10 does that, he's saying about, it's everyone from that area And of course, Juror number 5 puts him in his place. From that moment on, every time in the film that Juror 10 makes a complaint, Juror number 5 is always the first to stand up to him and tell him that he's wrong, or or shut up or whatever. So yes, that is set out very early in the film, and it's maintained throughout. It's very clear that Juror 5 has absolutely no regard for Juror 10. I mean, I don't think many people in that jury room did have much regard for Juror number 10, but yeah,
when the Suella Braverman rant went on, and they all just stood up and turned their backs to him.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of my favourite scenes in the film, Matt.
Well, the final line there from Juror number 4, where he just says, I have been listening, now sit down and don't open your mouth again. And of course he doesn't say another word for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Apart from not guilty at the end.
Well, he just shakes his head, doesn't he? He doesn't even say it. So, yeah, he is silent for the rest of the film there.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
I think we can all pretty much agree that the most hateful and unbearable character is Juror number 7. Because, well, for me, right from the word go, he's completely disinterested. He just wants it to be over and done with so he can bugger off to his baseball game. And he's so desperate to get out of there ASAP that he then changes his vote from guilty to not guilty for no other reason but because he wants to get out quick. And of course, the moment he does that, regardless of which side you were on, whether you're in favour of guilty or not guilty, you didn't want to know what he had to say because it was obviously just a waste of time. Of course, he's also an extremely irritating person, constantly with all his remarks and quips and everything. And I mean, in the end, again, Juror number 2, even he tells him to shut up. So yeah, he's yeah, I can't stand the guy. I mean, Jack Warden, who plays him, great actor, and he does a fucking great job in this. But yeah, the character, he's fucking unbearable.
I'll tell you, that one thing that reminded me of, like the whole ensemble cast and the characters they were playing, that kind of reminded me of a tea room when I worked for a bigger company, where you had you got 4 or 5 Joe Everymans in the room, and then you've got the angry bloke, you've always got the old racist, you've got the quiet bloke, you've got the guy that we were just talking about, like the Joker of the pack. And when they wrote it, instead of making every character different, they made some of them just slightly different. So, they might not have stood out quite so much. It's like jurors number 11 and 12. Even though they had their parts to play as the film went on, to start out with, you didn't know that they were really any different. Apart from one was a bit of a Jack the Lad, and the other one was obviously of maybe foreign descent. And as the film went on, you realised that it was 12 very different people, but it took the film to show you that. Because at the beginning, apart from juror number 3, who was like Mr. Angry, and juror number 10, who was Mr. Racist, and juror number 7, who was Mr. Joker Clown, the others to start with, you had to kind of wait for the film to play out to actually get what their gig was, what they were all about. And I really liked the way it did that. Yeah,
why it worked is that pretty much what you were saying there, they weren't extreme examples of like the particular character trait that they were showing. So it was always believable. If it had been 12 people and all of them were like just totally different to each other, it would have been a bit over the top. It wouldn't have worked so well. So yeah, the fact that it was done, with subtlety. Obviously, with some of the characters, again, Juror 3 and Juror 10, Juror 7. Yeah, they did need to be a bit of an extreme sort of case, but they were really the only ones. And 3 out of 12. Yeah, you would accept that. That's not overly done, I don't think.
Yeah, because I got the impression that like Juror 1 and Juror 6 were very similar people. They just appeared to be sort of like more working class, down to earth. Let's do this properly sort of thing. But even they, as the film progressed, even they had their differences, and it was really good.
Yeah, Juror 6, I think, is the one who probably contributes the least as far as like the actual deliberations go. But he does deliver, I think, the biggest bombshell of the film when he's talking to Juror 8 when they're in the washroom. And he says to him, supposing you do talk us all out of this, and the kid really did knife his father. And that came from Juror 6 of all people.
That's what Jambon said in the comments. He said they should have added a twist where you actually see the kid do it in a flashback or something. And he put, not really.
He's also said, if I had a little nitpick, it would be that the bit where they all turned their back on the racists felt a bit stagey. Yeah, You could say that, but I mean, bearing in mind that it was a stage play to begin with, I think it was kind of needed. They needed to get the point across that they didn't want to hear what he was saying. So
this was late 50s America, and racism and all that was rife.
Yeah. Now there is one character, Juror number 1. Now, I don't know if in American law, the foreman, if he is just there and he is just like arranging the whole thing, because you notice throughout the whole film he never once gives his opinion or gives any arguments for one side or the other. The only time we know what he's thinking is whenever there's a vote, and he will then put his hand up or whatever and declare whether he's voting guilty or not guilty. What did you think with regards to Juror number 1? For a start, does either of you two or anyone who's watching and commenting, do you know if that is the case? Is the foreman, is he basically keeping quiet? Is he there to organise it but not to actually contribute towards any of the deliberations? Because he doesn't.
I don't think so.
Yeah. The only thing he was talked about was that he's an American football coach for college. That was literally the only thing he talked about. Everything else was organising the votes and calming people down.
Well, as far as I know, obviously I can only work it on the British legal system because such as it is. The foreman is the same as every other juror, but he's the one that addresses addresses the judge and gives the verdict. He's the one that stands up and says, unanimous decision or whatever, or hung jury or anything like that. All right. As much as they won't admit it, it does stem from the same original legal thing. So they are quite similar in a lot of respects. So I would assume that would be so he's still a juror, but then maybe because he had that to do, that's more of a film stage script thing. Whereas because he's got that to do, he's got to call the votes and that. They've left the deliberating parts and the toing and throwing and arguing to the other members of the cast. I don't know. But as far as I know, they deliberate the same as everyone else. It's 12. A jury of 12, not a jury of 11, and that bloke, what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, in that regard, I consider.
Jambon's right
there. Yeah, he did offer to let the racist chair the media. See, that was right near the beginning, and juror 10 is complaining about it, and he say, well, if you want to do it, you take over.
No. Basil 40. Do you want to come in on the
yeah. So, for me, juror number 1 is probably like the least effective of any of them. Simply because at no point does he ever really sort of like tell you where he stands or why.
No, he told us where, but he didn't put his arguments across for anything.
No.
Say, I'm guilty until he swung. That was it. He didn't say because this, because that. He didn't back his opinion up with anything. So he was concentrating more on his foreman duties than his juror duties, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I certainly would not go so far as to say that any part was badly written. That is not the case at all. But yeah, clearly juror number one, yeah, he sort of took very much a back seat there. One juror we haven't mentioned yet is juror number 9, Joseph Sweeney, the old guy. What did you make of him?
No, I did like his character, and when he had that epiphany moment with the glasses, yeah, that was very impressive because no one had thought of that, and it just popped in his head, and he spoke out about it, and he was very methodical, he justified it, and then he said, well, "Would you wear your glasses in bed when you're tossing and turning and it's dark and you can't sleep?" No.
Being the juror who finally sways juror number 4 to vote not guilty, that took some doing. And the fact that he was the one that did it, yeah, you've got to give him his dues for that.
I liked his reasoning for why he originally changed his vote from guilty to not guilty, basically because juror number 8 had cast enough reasonable doubt. And he said, if you're prepared to stand there on your own against 11 other men, then surely there must be something in it. So he changed it so they could talk further on it.
Yeah,
and I thought that was really well done as well.
Yeah, in fact, juror number 9, I think does as much to make sure the deliberations progress. Although he doesn't do it in anywhere near as obvious a way as juror number 8, he does allow it to progress just as much, and that being, obviously the first rather major step. If he hadn't done that, the whole thing would have ended right there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I saw it, and I saw it at the beginning. I saw them all do it, and it was as far as we were concerned at that time, it was an open and shut case. Yeah, all the evidence was stacked against him. Let's just do this and go home. But what I found interesting, and I'm not one of the particular jurors, is how you see the motivation for why they voted guilty. One couldn't be fucking asked to be there for a second longer. Another one because he completely fucked his relationship with his own kid up.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was what really sort of engaged me about it. All that being revealed.
Yeah, exactly. It was personal prejudice was like basically the motivation for the 3 main people who were voting guilty. Actually, I'll tell a lie. That's certainly for 2 of them. The third one, of course, is juror number 4, who I admit is my favourite character in the whole film, because he's approaching the case in exactly the same way as juror number 8, and yet he's come to a completely different conclusion. So I also like the way that when the 2 of them are arguing like their sides, there's no insults, there's no straight away, oh no, you're talking rubbish or anything like that. In fact, juror number 4 even says, you've made some excellent points, but I still think the guy's guilty and blah blah blah. And he always presented his argument purely on factual content. Again, nothing to do with any prejudices or anything like that. And I do think it does rather highlight a slight sort of like problem with the judicial system. Juror number 4, juror number 8 have both sat there listening to exactly the same case, and they've listened to it in exactly the same way and using the same method to come to their conclusions, and the conclusions are both the total opposite of each other.
And it was interesting the way they was in the end were doing the job that the lawyers, sorry, that's America, isn't it? That the lawyers should have fucking done, because in the end they picked apart all the facts and realised that they were mostly flawed. Like the lady was blind, the old man would never have got to the door in time. You couldn't have heard the body fall over or someone screaming, "I'm going to kill you," because the train was going past. And then one of them got angry and told juror 10, wasn't it, got angry and said, I'm going to kill you, to one of the other jurors.
Yeah, he's only completely undid the argument. It was juror 3 that
juror
did
3
that, yeah.
towards 8, yeah.
Yeah, number 3.
That's proving a point. I'll tell you something I mentioned right at the beginning of the film when they were first getting up and leaving the court. Remember I said, that's a long fade on the defendant. And you realise as the film goes on why they did that. They were giving you an audience a good look at a really young kid that may or may not have done something. So it kind of gives you a it made you remember. I can still remember what I've that's the first time I've seen that film in got to be nearly 40 years, and I can still remember what the kid looked like at the beginning. Because they've done that in such a way that you as a viewer remember exactly who they're talking about, exactly whose life they got in the balance, and I think that was really clever. And I didn't realise at the start when I said, that's a bit of a long fade, just how relevant that was to all of it.
Yeah.
And I said to him, look, they keep glancing back at him one last look before they go off and talk about it.
And you notice also that all the people that kept doing that were the ones that, when they took the preliminary vote, they put their hands up quite a while after everybody else. You had like 3 or 4 of them straight away voting guilty, and then all the rest were all just sort of like slowly, eventually putting their hands up. Like they had the doubts there already, but they didn't want to be the one that was, not going to go with everybody else. So they were all rather reluctantly voting guilty, but they all still did. And it was all those ones that were all, turning around to get a last look at him as they were walking out.
I'd like to think that if I ever cop jury service, that I'd make my own mind up rather than just go with the majority. I'd base it on what I saw, and if everyone said guilty and I didn't think so, I'd do exactly the same. I might not be as
what if you had Iron Maiden tickets in your pocket?
Well, now you mention it. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't just give in to majority, because if you don't believe what you're saying, how can you live with that afterwards? All right, no one's going to go to the electric chair in this country, but worst they're going to get is a couple of years and a slap on the head. But it's even so, I think the way, especially the way Fonda played it, was absolutely brilliant. He was really. There's a lot of people that say, no, I don't agree with you, and they'd be really like harsh about it, and more like juror number 3, where he was really meek, mild, he was collected, and he put the point across and refused to back down because he was convinced there was room for doubt. And I really, that really made that character stand out as a great character. And I've got to admit, I think one of my favourite characters is juror number 4 as well, because he was really fucking cold and clinical about it, but he was still on point.
Yeah, and when he finally realised that, okay, there was the doubt there was no like resentment or anything like that. It was just, no, I have a reasonable doubt now, not guilty, and it was just as simple as that. So yeah, he never took any of it personally. Quite unlike juror number 3, who of course, because whenever anybody brought up an argument that was effectively defending the accused, or was bringing anything into doubt, the first thing he would do straight away is just like ridicule it and insist it's wrong. And of course, because he was doing that all the way through, and basically he was burning his bridges with everybody else in the room, when it came to him being alone, he didn't stand a fucking chance of getting anybody back onto his side again. And then that's when he realised he was just as isolated in that room with everybody else there as he was isolated with his son, which of course was the number one reason why he was constantly voting guilty anyway.
Yeah. Nothing to do with the actual proven facts.
No.
And
So
he played the part really well and all. I mean, there's not a single, even like the people that didn't have that much to do, like, you know, juror number one. You know, all right, you know, he a lot of his stuff was taking votes and giving the clerk the map and the knife back and stuff like that. The bits he did do was still really believable. It was there wasn't a single bad piece of acting in that.
No, not at all. As far as the acting, the performances of everyone in that room, it was flawless. I really would go that far. I do not have the remotest criticism for any of the performances in the film.
Even the board judge was good.
Yeah, I thought it was great the way he did that. You know, clearly he had given that same speech Christ knows how many times before, and so he's just sitting there totally disinterested, and it is totally believable. You could well believe that there are judges still like that today, especially in America. So here's a question to put to you. Do you think the film suffers in any way from the fact that A, we didn't see any of the court case, and B, we don't know if the kid was actually guilty or not?
No, watching it from an entertainment point of view, which is why you watch a film, and being drawn in by the story. I think the court case, or whether or not the kid did it, is largely irrelevant, because it's more about the growth of the characters in the room and the way they come to their conclusions with the evidence they've been presented with and their own working out of logic. So no, I don't think it suffers from that at all. I mean, you know, would you really want to? I mean, unless they were to show the murder at the beginning, in which case you'd know either way, so it wouldn't count. The characters wouldn't have as much gravitas on screen because you already know whether someone's right or wrong. And would you really want an entire court case tacked on the beginning, because they were able to convey exactly what happened in the court case with the old man, with the woman, with the map, with the knife. They were able to do the whole lot without needing to show an entire court case beforehand. Because all it would be it'd be superfluous to the story, because then after stuff that they said while they were deliberating,
just repeating stuff you've already seen. Yeah, exactly.
Well, for me anyway, I don't know what Jim might think differently.
No, I think, as you said, the court case and the actual what really did happen is irrelevant. The whole point of the film is we see how people all come eventually to a unanimous decision through thick or thin. You know, whether he did it or not is irrelevant. It's whether they think he did it, and that was the whole point. I mean, we didn't need to see the court case because they pretty much repeated everything that was said in the court case anyway, didn't they? And I don't think it suffers from that at all.
No.
What I will say though, I mean, even though I'm the youngest here, I'm going to sound old. I cannot see that film appealing to sort of the younger sort of TikTok audience now, though.
No, I don't think it would now. I mean, you know, can you imagine the sort of person who watches Love Island trying to sit there and watch this? No way. And of course, a film like this would never be made today anyway. You know, every character was white and every character was a man. Oh no, we can't have that. Fucking hell, yeah. So now it'd be 12
angry
mildly
people.
I'll tell you
12 mildly offended gender fluids now. You know, fucking what?
But what I did notice, which I think was a real plus point of the film, there was no jump cuts. It was all in real time from start to finish, wasn't it?
Pretty much, yes.
Obviously, when they leave the jury room and then you see him coming down the stairs to the court, the entire time they're in that room, I don't think there was a jump cut to say like half an hour later after our break.
No, exactly. Yeah. The entire deliberation was done in real time. Yeah, which, when you think about it, means that it was quite a quick deliberation. You know, to come to a not guilty verdict it was in less than an hour and a half. Even though they were constantly talking about, okay, we'll go to the judge and say it's a hung jury. It's, you've only been in there barely an hour. You know, there's no way a judge would entertain, the possibility of it being a hung jury after such a short time.
Yeah. But it sounds like the court case was quite short. Was there 2 witnesses and a policeman?
Well, they said, didn't they, in the film, the case had gone on for 6 days. So, yeah, that just makes me even more glad that I didn't bother doing the jury service when I got called up. Fucking 6 days of just listening to all that. Oh, it would drive you around a bend. And that is one of the reasons why I, far from thinking that the film suffers from not having the court case there, I think the film benefits from it. Because the pacing is a lot better. If you'd had the court case, which would have had to have been very heavily edited, the pacing would have just been all over the place, and it would not have worked at all.
Yeah.
So I'm more than okay with the fact that we don't see any of the case, and we don't know the truth of it. We don't know if the kid was guilty or not. That just adds to it.
Yeah. Also, if we'd have seen the other witnesses give their evidence, we would have had our own opinions of that. And the whole point of the film is what their opinions of the statement is, not ours.
Yeah. I mean, the film is as much a character study as it is anything else. Is like you two have said, the actual court case itself is to a degree irrelevant. It is about the 12 characters that we have there in the room, how they are interacting with each other, and how they develop throughout all of these like various interactions. It's one of the reasons why this film, I think, above any other, is always used whenever there's like any sort of film studies group or or people who actually do film at university for some fucking reason, I don't know. But when it comes to like actually character creations for any kind of film or screenplay or whatever, this film is always given as an example. This is the film you must see if you want to see character development done properly, done well, and it is pretty much the definitive film for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna having watched it again now, I'm gonna recommend it to my youngest. He's at uni doing video editing and film and stuff like that, but he really does like his films, and for someone that's 23, he'll give anything a fair try. He won't, he's not one of these youngsters that say, "Oh, I'm not watching that. It's black and white." He appreciates. No, he appreciates stuff for what it is. I mean, he gave me a bollocking when he come to visit me because he said to me, "How comes you've never told me about Ronnie James Dio?" And I was like, "Oh, right, okay, sorry." So he's quite happy to try old stuff. So I'm going to recommend it to him and say, he does like stuff with character development. I know him and my other one, when we used to sort of like sit down and watch a film, I'd sit with them, and then they'd sit like with me for an hour afterwards doing this, like talking about the film and the characters, and they were both massive on character development. So I reckon he'd really like this. So I'm going to recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a film for definitely one that I would be recommending. Jamon has got a question here. I'm not sure it's entirely serious. Should they have called it Two Angry Men and Assaulted Others? In fact, throughout the film, everyone does at some point get angry, so I mean, it does live up to the title. Some stay angry for a damn sight longer than others, but it does apply to everybody who's in the room.
Even John Fielder got angry, and he was very mild mannered throughout the rest of it.
I think he is the one where the development of the character really is the most obvious. You can clearly see it. A lot of the others, Henry Fonda being the prime example, even though you are still seeing an awful lot of the character throughout the film, he doesn't really change all that much, but then he doesn't need to, because the character is there. It's established quite early on. In fact, you notice actually when the film is starting and he's first walking into everyone's coming into the jury room, he's standing there on his own for the most part. He's not really sort of socialising with anybody else there. So right from the start, he is the loner. So you get the impression, okay, he already knows that most, if not everybody else in the jury room is going to be voting guilty. So he knows he's on his own right from the start. So although his character doesn't exactly develop much, there isn't any actual change. It doesn't need to be. They set out the store with him right from the start, and they stick with it because there is no need for him to change in any way.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. I mean, I suppose he's. He never gets really angry at all. I suppose he's part of being one of the angry men. Is the fact that he's prepared to stick up for himself and for what he believes in.
Yeah, I mean, the only time he really sort of like gets sort of angry is when he's shouting at juror number 3 about, you know, the fact that he wants to be the one to pull the switch and stuff like that. Yeah. So right,
I've just seen the point Jambon's made. I can see what you're saying there, but I think that's more what they do these days than what they did then. I think.
Yeah, it's very possible. Now, it's something to see, right? There are 2 scenes in this film which, depending on the time, because it could have been when this film was first made or when the play was first written in 1954, it may not have been the case then. And once 1957 came along, the law had changed to such an extent. And it also may only be that it could be actually that I'm applying British law here in obviously a scenario that is obviously American law. But there are 2 things that happen in this film which, if the judge had found out about it, would have resulted in it being a mistrial and the jury being sent home. So do you know what either or both of those things are?
Was one of them fond of producing a knife?
Yeah, smuggling a knife.
That is one. Yes, bringing in basically a replica of the the exhibit, the knife. If the judge had found out about that, straight away the jury dismissed and it declared a mistrial. Do you know what the other one is?
Just thinking it through.
I mean, they handled the evidence, didn't they?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the clerk of the court brought it into him. So
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The even though it involved a knife again, the the pretending to stab each other bit probably wouldn't go down well.
Hang on a minute. I think I might know. He said he went out and bought a knife. So that was obviously in the middle of the trial. I thought they weren't allowed to go off. They would have to go straight from court to a hotel.
I think they are actually still allowed to go out. At least, certainly at the time that this was made, that was still okay. You weren't all just cooped up in a hotel room there. So, no, that's not it.
Right.
I'll tell you now, it has nothing to do with the knife again. We had the first one was to do with a knife. The second one, nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing any alcohol or anything.
No one's smuggled in any moonshine or anything like that. No.
No, I think the depression was over by then.
Yeah, 57. It fucking well should be. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do you know? I mean.
No hats. Oh dear. No, it's not that.
I was going to say that suit was offensive during number 7 suit.
Looks like I've got you stumped there. It is actually when they did the reenactment of the old man going from his bed to the front door. Him acting that out. Yeah. That would have also resulted in a. They're not allowed to attempt to do like reenactments of the events.
Well, I didn't know that.
So
I wouldn't have got that, which is why I didn't.
Yeah.
But he was proving a point. He actually said, "Well, look, he's an old man. He's got his leg dragging behind me. He's had a stroke. And he'd never walk all that way in 15 seconds. And then they were going, yeah, he would.
Yeah.
He's just proving a point, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think that is when the film was, or when the stage play was originally written, that was okay. So something must have happened, and then doing a reconstruction or whatever resulted in it like completely skewing, the facts of it, and so a case got ruined. But yeah, the law got changed so that that was no longer the case. So yeah, you weren't allowed to do that. You're able to discuss the case, but yeah, you couldn't actually do any sort of like reenactments of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the lawyers should have done something similar in court, really, if they'd have done their job.
Well, I mean, it's like they said in the film, by bringing it up in court, it would have meant, badgering an old man, which never sits well with a jury, and it doesn't to this day. It still doesn't. And also, of course, they were saying that the defence lawyer was court appointed, and it sounds like he pretty much didn't want to. He didn't want to take the case in the first place, but he had no choice in the matter. So it certainly sounds like the defence counsel was not all that great.
Yeah, as Jambon said, the lawyers must have been fairly thorough to make a map of the old man's flat. But
exactly. Now, see,
do you know, Chris? You can actually click on them comments and put them up on the
screen.
Oh
yes, I can. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, if we bring that up there, yeah, there we go. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing a Maymeister impression here. But so things like having the map there present and bringing the map in, that's fine. And then you could be discussing the case and using the map to sort of illustrate your point. It was the actual reconstruction, Henry Fonda moving around the room trying to walk like the old man had. That's the thing that would have resulted in the jury being dismissed. Of course, the judge has to find out that they had been doing this. So if the judge doesn't find out, I guess they sort of get away with it, which might be what happened in the case of this film.
Yeah.
So there we are. That was 12 Angry Men. So we need a review and a score. So let's start then with Jim, as this was your first time ever seeing this. So you make the score out of 10, but yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, let's go. First of all, production. Yeah. I actually did feel I was in that hot, sweaty, sort of claustrophobic room with them, with tensions high. It was. I know the director pulled off a few tricks so that the actors were actually feeling like that genuinely, but I did honestly feel I was there with them. So production was excellent, probably made on a very limited budget too, because being in one room, but that's irrelevant. I did feel I was there, so I can't fault the production on that either. The long fade, as Chris Panther mentioned, which sort of let us stare into the soul of the accused for a few seconds. That was important. And character study as well. By the end of that film, we knew exactly what motivated each juror, what their good sides and bad sides were, why they voted the way they did, why they swung, and and they all felt very human and very real people as well. So, going on that film is definitely in my top 10 films now. And I'm probably going to give it a 9, actually. I was really, really impressed with that.
9 out of 10 from Jim. Not a bad score at all. Chris?
Well, without wanting to completely repeat what Jim's just said, it did pull you in. It felt like you was sat in the room watching it with them. I'm watching it on a computer screen, and yet it could have been my fucking great telly downstairs. It totally pulled me in. And I find with doing videos like this, if something pulls you in, there was a lot of times in that for many minutes at a time where we didn't say fuck all. We was just watching the film.
Yeah.
And that's the mark of a good film. You know, if it's that bad that you can just continually talk over it, it's not going to get a good score. I thought the characters were brilliant. I thought the script was brilliant. The acting was nigh on second to none. I mean, some of the best acting I've ever seen in a film. I'm going to give it a 9 as well.
9 as well. It's doing all right, this film, isn't it? For me, it is the definitive character-driven film. I've not seen anything come close to the levels that this film achieves. Given that it is a subject matter that doesn't interest me in the slightest, the fact that this film just keeps me hooked from start to finish, and it still does that to this day, even though I have seen this film hundreds of times, and yet every time I watch it, there are plenty of occasions where I'm just like, a scene of it pops in my head, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll just watch that clip, and I end up watching the whole thing. I do it every fucking time. As far as the performances go, it is flawless. I do not have a single remotely critical word to say about any of the performances in it. In terms of the cinematography, I think they got it spot on. Every single character gets their close-up moments. They all get their time as like the real sort of like focus of a particular scene. It's a fucking nailed on 10 out of 10 for me.
Okay, now I never thought I'd hear the day he said that. Jesus Christ!
So I don't give 10 out of 10s lightly. For me, for anything I'm reviewing, whether it's films, whether it's music, whether it's video games, 10 out of 10 is effectively perfection. And I think this film is fucking close to perfection. I have absolutely no qualms about giving this 10 out of 10. Which means that 12 Angry Men scores 28 out of 30.
It's not bad, is it?
It ain't bad going. For the first film in this series. It has set the bar rather high.
It has. Well, one question I was going to ask you, having you've seen it multiple times, do you notice something new every time you watch it? You pick something up that you previously sort of went over your head?
Not so much these days, but that certainly used to be the case, yeah. The first at least dozen times that I watched it, there was something that I would pick up on. It's like, I don't remember that from before, it frequently happens. It's definitely a film that rewards multiple viewings because, for a good few times, there is going to be something new that you didn't pick up on beforehand. So... it's not the case now purely because of how many times I have seen it, but that is definitely the case for I'd say at least the first dozen times of watching it.
Interesting. That's even more reason for me to watch it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I just see no additional comments there. So that I think is that for 12 Angry Men, but it is certainly not the end of this playlist. I think I can be fairly certain in saying that this worked quite well, and this is not going to be a one-off. Now, I've got quite a few films lined up to be covered. Then it is quite a mixture. Pretty much every film genre you can think of, I've got an example there. The only genre I've avoided is straight out and out science fiction, because let's face it, this sort of format it is the format that Carwin uses on the Carwin's TV channel. And okay, he's fine with it because I've asked him, and he's like, yeah, no problem. But I think if I was to start covering science fiction, it might be treading on the toes a little bit too much. So I'd rather steer clear of science fiction, certainly at least for the moment. And there are plenty of great films that we can cover, you know, without doing science fiction. I'm not going to say we will never do science fiction, but at the moment, I'd rather not. Jambon just suggests musicals. Yeah.
So that just means Mary Poppins has been added to my list.
Fucking hell.
There's a 10 out of 10. Just got Dick Van Dyke in it. What more do you fucking want? With regards to sci-fi, maybe, you never know, further down the line we might be able to cajole Carwin of Carwin's TV to join us anyway. So we'll see.
If you are watching this, Carwin, you know, you are always welcome to take part in these things. You know, there's always going to be a seat there if you want to, you know, take part. Just come along, more than welcome. I'll say if there's say a science fiction film, but it's also a bit of a crossover, and I guess sci-fi and horror is probably the most frequent crossover there. I would certainly include that because I would then treat it as a horror film. And I mean, you two know I love me horror films, so I'm okay with doing that. I don't know what the next film will be. I've got a slight inkling, but we'll see about that. It's not going to be like a regular series. It's not going to be like every Friday we're going to be doing this. So it's like everything else on this channel, you know, it will just come along when it does. But just like with this one, I'll do like a short video announcing, you know, the day, the time, what the film will be. So anyone who wants to come along and, you know, watch along with us, you'll have like a few days to get a copy of, you know, whatever film it's going to be. But yeah, pretty much every genre will be covered. I'm not sure about musicals, but yeah, pretty much anything else. Also, it's going to have a mixture of, like, you know, mainstream films. This is a mainstream classic, this film. So there will be other mainstreams. There will be some like films with a real sort of like cult following. There will even be some films that are absolute shitfests. But don't keep requesting that I do, like, you know, really shit films, because it's not going to happen. There will be like one or two, but they are not going to, like, you know, start dominating the stream or anything like that. So yes, there is certainly more to come. I'm sure I can hear everyone celebrating from here. You know.
Yeah, there was much rejoicing.
Yeah, exactly. But that is it for this one. 12 Angry Men scoring 28 out of 30. It's done well, and deservedly so. One of the greatest films ever made. It is as simple as that. Well, I think so anyway.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. To get a 9 out of me, you know, that's pretty good going.
Yeah, certainly is. And to get a 9 out of Jim for the first time he'd ever seen it, yeah, it obviously made quite a big impression, and the right sort of big impression.
Yeah, more of an impression than Eagle Fly Free, anyway.
They had to get mentioned at some point. We've been going on now for 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's only just cropped up. You've done all right, you know.
He's going to slap me when he meets
me. Yeah.
Good job, I've been training. All right, anyway.
Yeah. Yes, so on that note, stream done, and now go away.